Hi, I'm Tintin Wisniewski from the Hoover Institution. Hoover's Career Task Force on K-12 education, with the help of some friends, has attempted to project what American education might look like in the year 2030. By that time, today's newborn will become college freshmen. The task of looking so far ahead while refreshing is also quite formidable. We invite you to join us in this predictive video presentation in search for solutions to the challenges that American education faces in the years ahead. For more information about this project, please visit our website at americaneducation2030.com. Paul Peterson is a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution, where he specializes in education policy, federalism, and urban politics. He explains the dire fate that awaits American education if current trends continue unchanged for the next 20 years.
In the crystal ball that the cameraman is holding in his hand, I see a bright future for American education. That's what I talk about in my forthcoming book, Saving Schools, which is going to be published by Harvard University Press this spring. But there's a bleaker future that could be predicted if you went simply on past trends, the conventional way of forecasting. Climatologists predict the future. They say the Earth is going to get warmer over the next 100 years because that's been the trend over the past 100 years or so. And the business cycle forecasts tell us that the economy is going to improve by late 2010, 2011, assuming that the future is like the past. So we always project into the future what the past is like. And so it is in education if we want to project the future. But when we do it that way, we get a very bleak prediction. It tells us, for example, that we're going to be spending a lot more money to hire a lot more people to get very little out of our educational system. It tells us, for example, that we're going to be spending $36,000 per pupil on our educational system in 40 years from now. And it tells us that we're going to have 8 students for each teacher in the classroom. And it tells us that we're going to have 5 students for every adult working in the school system. And it tells us that we're going to have a lot more money being spent by the state and federal government, and local governments are only going to pay about 1/3 of the cost of education as compared to about half today. So power is going to shift to the center. We're going to have more regulations, more controls by state and federal government. We're going to have more testing. We're going to have more efforts to hold schools accountability by the state and federal government because they're going to be putting up the money. The courts are going to interfere with the operations of the schools to ever greater extent. And all of that is going to produce very little in terms of student achievement. Students are going to be performing in the future about as they are today, because that's been the trend over the past 40 years. And it's going to be the case that the United States is going to be trailing the rest of the world in math and science performance by the time that kids get to the age of 17. And it's going to be the case that the collective bargaining process is going to be at the state level, not at the local level, but teachers are going to be of lower quality in the future than they are today because teacher quality has been declining in the past. So the trends are more centralized control, more money being spent, and very little coming out of that educational system. But all of that could change. All of that could change in a dramatic way by the introduction of major new technologies into our educational system. I talk about that in my book. I don't have time to go into it here. But what it tells us is that students can start accessing information online from the very best instructors presented in the most effective way. It can be thought through in a disciplined manner and conveyed to large numbers of students who then can start teaching one another because they can communicate through social networks, through our internet technology that is coming online very fast. With open source technology, we can have the most able of peers teaching other students in ways that are interesting to young people. Instead of having it always coming from adults to young people, they can begin to teach one another. So we can have games, we can have competitions, we can have learning, cooperation, lots of things that are just barely coming online today. So that's a future for education, which means that kids will be using the school as we know it today as a place for sports, for drama, for music, but not for a lot of their academic material. Teachers, to the extent that we have them today, will look more like coaches. There will be a standard that every student will be expected to learn, and technology will be able to help them get there, and coaches will be available to help them through the steps, and learning can occur through peer groups communicating with one another the way in which most people learn anyhow. All of this can happen in the future, provided we let technology move us forward. What's going to drive it is the higher cost of education. The public is going to resist paying for education as we know it today. They're going to expect, they're going to demand changes, and students are going to love it. They're going to love to be out of the structured situation that forces everybody to be taught in the same way. And in future, students will be able to learn at their own pace, in their own way, their own path. And that transformation of the school is going to produce a better educated population in the future than we have today. Thank you.